Well, everybody, and welcome to day number 5 of the Flat Rate Challenge. I can't believe it, Ken. We're already 5 days in. And as everyone's noticed today, I've got quite a casual look going on. Got my Star Wars shirt on and my Friday Star Wars Mandalorian hat. If anyone hasn't seen the series yet, it may convert you to Star Wars. I don't know. But I'm getting excited because it's Friday night and that's Mandalorian. So, hey, Ken, how are you?
I am fine. It is, like you said, it's been an interesting week. It's been a quick week, but it has been a busy week, and it's interesting to see. We got people starting to book appointments already. And so for those that are watching it on our website, there's a button down below that says book a call. It's a good time to get your slot saved while you can.
Use one of those.
Yeah, and we're getting ready for it's going to be fun today. Today I get to talk a little more. Well, I don't know if I talk anymore a lot. But anyway, we're going to talk about my subject. We're going to talk about service. I am so looking forward to the conversation. For everybody's information in your chat, wherever you are, there are 2 questions that beg answers. So I would love to see you guys put the answer in the comments, in the chat, wherever. And because it's going to come into play during our discussion today.
It sure will. And speaking of the chat section, make sure you post your comments and questions. One of the things that we love to do, just to start out there, let us know where you're from for starters, right? And any questions you have as you go through this, post them because we love to share them. And this is a live event. And speaking of, telling us where you're from, make sure you put those in the comments. We are so excited that this has turned into such a global event, right, Ken? I love showing off this map. We do it every day. We continue to get new registrations for people in the Flat Rate Challenge from all over the world. I know earlier this week, you got a few more from the UK, one more from sort of the United Arab Emirates area. Obviously in Norway, we have some, France, Spain, the UK, Canada, of course, in the US, South Africa. Truly, a global event, which means that this flat rate thing has finally come into its own, and we're super excited to be able to sharing this 10-day challenge with everybody. And hey, Ken, so day 5, this is your service wheelhouse, and what we've tried to do is make sure that we line up our sponsors, appropriately with kind of the topic of the day, right? And I'm so excited to have the person that we have in today. Everyone, I think, should know him, Wes McCarter with BEI NEXERA, and they have some incredible tool sets. They have some incredible methodologies. Yes, they can be used in cost per page, but I'm telling you, when I look at what they can do under the flat rate model, I'm super excited.
Yeah, we were talking just before we started that I am a huge numbers fan. I love numbers. I love modeling.
Yeah,
so we're going to look. I'm gonna not hand modeling or face modeling statistically.
Thanks for clarifying, everybody. Just needed to get that out of the way.
That's fine. But what we are going to do is I'm going to actually share some of their data. It's not a commercial, but they just give me the tools to help you understand better what's going on and why you need. I will say this right now. As owners and as business leaders, you need to take control of what your salespeople are selling and how they're pricing things, because you'll see in the conversation today the impact it can have.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm a huge tool-based fan as well, and I certainly do not mind bragging them up because for anyone out there, we gave first right of refusal we thought were the best fit for what we were doing, and we were excited. We didn't have to go to anyone for second choice, right? We got everyone that we wanted that we've worked with over the years, and super thrilled to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Wes. Let's see, make sure I get the banner up here. And Ken, I'm going to kick you out for just a minute so you can go off and do some modeling. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing awesome.
Great. Well, really nice to see you. And when we were talking just a little bit earlier, when you were in the green room, you can certainly see it looks like you got a fantastic afternoon out there. So hopefully You'll be doing something later to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's mid-80s for Arizona at this time of year. Having 80s feels like spring.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Hey, first of all, thank you so much for sponsoring, right? I just love the fact that when we reached out to you, it happened so quickly, and you've always been such a great supporter in the industry and the things that you're doing supporting our dealer channel. So first of all, thank you for that. We couldn't do this without you. As we've said to everyone, all of the dealers get to enjoy this 10-day challenge absolutely free of charge because of the generosity of the sponsors, right? So can't thank you enough.
Our pleasure.
The next thing I'd like to do is, obviously I know you pretty well, Ken knows you pretty well, and I know that most people in the Office Equipment channel do, but just take a couple of minutes and, tell us more about yourself and what you're doing for the industry.
Well, I appreciate that. We've been around a long time, since '93, kind of started around service statistics and data. That evolution led us to start looking for solutions. So it was one thing to have data point out what the problem is. It was another thing to solve the problem. And then there's another thing that says, how do you solve the problem? So as we've evolved over the years, we've identified opportunities to create solutions that help dealers actually get results. So that sometimes that's leadership development, sometimes that's coaching, sometimes that's just making harder decisions about how you structure your territories and how you do inventory, all of these different things. So we've created a whole suite of tools focused primarily initially around service. 2 years ago, we expanded our offerings into managing ERP. So we offer virtual service management, mentoring programs, financial, administrative. We can literally take over things like accounts receivables, payables, HR, virtual sales. So we have a full suite now of tools that can help any dealer optimize their ERP and optimize their manpower and requirements, because COVID changed a lot for us over the last couple of years and how we have to deal with our staff.
Yeah, sure did. And, to your point, COVID was one thing. And then obviously, we kind of saw some changes coming in the marketplace anyway, even before that, right? So it's got to be such a relief for the dealers that are working with you, that are allowing you to take, to make that part of their lives easier, more automated, more effective, right? So continue the good work. And, what I'm curious about, I want to kind of point you in a bit of a different direction now. So obviously you talked about, sort of the changes that have been happening, sort of accelerated with the pandemic. What kind of ways can BEI Services and NEXERA support people that are starting a flat rate initiative?
Well, after watching and listening to some of your conversations early on, when flat rate was still kind of a vaporware product as far as our dealer community goes, we started using our data, and much like Ken had mentioned, modeling what would flat rate look like using a data set. So we have all of the cost analytics that we know exactly what the volumes are. We know exactly what the service costs are. How could we model a program that allows a dealer to do a very accurate job of predicting what I would have to charge a customer on a monthly basis in a flat rate model to make a profit margin? So we built an entire product around the idea that you, as a dealer, now needs to be focused on what's the outcome the customer is looking for. We've been so product centric that we've not ever necessarily asked and said, okay, what is the customer buying this device for? Example, I'm buying it for 2,500 pages a month of black and white. Okay, let's find the best product that produces 2,500 pages a month at our expected profit margin and delivers the customer the experience they want, and find the right machine for that particular product. And that's what the tool does.
I love it. I've seen it in action, and it's incredible. And as I tell everyone that I'm working on flat rate with, you really need to talk to these guys. You really need to look at what they can do to help you there. Because the one thing with the flat rate program is that once you start offering a flat rate to the world, you've really got to have a much better understanding right out of the gate what your costs are, and making sure you're putting the right things, for the right purpose, right?
That's exactly right. That cost control aspect is something we've gotten away with not paying close enough attention to, but that's changing.
I think so, and I think early on in the managed print services days, we had so much leeway, right? That margins were just awesome on everything, the toner, the equipment. But certainly over the last few years, those margins have been getting tighter and tighter, and even under a cost per page world, that's become a problem. But like you said, we've had still some leeway, given the sense that people print more. So we're going to get, some more revenue out of it. We can go get a new account. But under a flat rate, boy, I'd hate to have to go back to that customer and, try and renege on a contract or something because I didn't do a good job up front understanding what the real costs were going to be, right? So
absolutely true.
Well, that's great. And we're going to be showing off a little bit more of your stuff today as well, because I know that Ken, with his customers, when he's doing service mentorship and training, uses it. So people, you're going to get a sneak peek at least a couple of the things that they do over at BEI NEXERA. So Wes, thanks again for everything that you guys are doing. And,
great job, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to support you.
Well, thank you once again. All right. Yeah, he's done some incredible things. Him and Bud Carrickey have had the honor to be able to work alongside over the years, and they just do amazing stuff. So really happy to have them supporting us with this.
Yeah, they have a great team. You mentioned Bud, but their whole team of people that they have in the field supporting dealers, they're all nice people to be around, nice people to work with, which is important. And they're also all very smart, which is icing on the cake.
And you don't get to have that all the time, right? So it's a rare opportunity. So I think we'll get started today. And I think just to let everyone know, today's session will be a little shorter because it is Friday. We want to make sure that everyone gets good use of their time. And I'm excited today because, Ken is one of these people that has dedicated his entire career to service. And to be able to work with somebody like Ken on this project and have that expertise and those insights has been amazing. So thank you for that, Ken. And what I'll do is I'll put up the first point that you have there, and then you can get started.
Okay. And so we talked a little bit about it in Wes and West. Try saying those names, get them correct and a couple, 3 times real quickly.
For everyone watching, by the way, when we were going through at the beginning, looking at all the banners, I actually put a T at the end of Wes's name because I'm so used to putting my own name. So we caught it.
Yeah, we did caught it. See, and I wasn't going to tell that story on you, but if you tell it on yourself, it's a funny story. But
you can't laugh at yourself; everyone else will, right? So
the key to being able to be effective in a flat rate program is you have to know what your costs are. And we're going to talk today about how we can improve those, but we start with knowing what the numbers are. Now, I posted in the chat box on all of them, and you may not be able to see it. I can't see what you see, but I'll just ask the question. If your cost for service on a device for parts and labor is 9 mils, do me a favor in the comments, put what you think your cost per page, what you would have to sell that page for after you add in toner and proppant, because this is just what your raw cost, 9 mils. And then I want you to do the same thing at 00369. And think about add your toner and all those things, your profit margin. Think about what the price per copy would be that you would sell that copy at. And then, now we're going to go ahead and let's bring up slide 1 because you'll start to understand why I ask those questions. Okay, and we're going to use data. And we want to do 2 things. Actually, we've got a couple things on the slide we'll talk about. But we want to eliminate the high cost devices, so we need to understand those costs. The one thing, and I should have asked, it's my fault, I should have asked for this on the slide. The other thing is we want to make sure we put the most cost-effective device in place. In other words, we don't want to put the device out that costs us 9 mils when we're going to sell the click at 1.1 at a penny 1. That wouldn't work so good. We're not going to get much margin on it. If we could put a device that's 369 for cost at a penny 1, that's a much better margin, right? It seems like to me, just doing simple math, that seems to make more money, right? So we want to make sure that we right size the equipment. Wes talked about it from the perspective of on the sales side, selling the equipment and building margin in there. We're going to look at it in our conversation today, and we're going to work on it from the service side. So if we can build some extra margin on the sales piece and extra margin on the service piece, life just starts to get so much better. The next point that we'll talk about on this slide is simplify your base. And I've mentioned this a couple of times. But the fewer devices that you support in the field, the easier it is to handle training, handle car stock, and make sure that your techs are proficient. The worst thing that you can have is a few weird devices out there because your techs will not be good at fixing them. You don't want to carry car stock, so you're going to have to make 2 trips back. And making a second trip back is hugely expensive. We'll probably come back to that a little bit later. So I am a firm believer that the process of buying your customer's equipment and then getting rid of the devices in there that you don't want to support and put in devices that you want to support. Now you've got a base that works well for the customer. It'll work well for you, and we can move on. And life starts to get, again, we're starting to make everything in this process. And as we go through this with the clients that work with us, we're going to help you to figure out how to really fine tune all of these details so that when you go to market, you have a strategy that will maximize your profits. Everybody talks about the things that they fear about flat rate. And I would say that it's not the things you fear that you should think about. It's how you can tailor your strategy to be very successful and very profitable.
Yeah, and I think most of the fear is the fear of the unknown, right? And for those that are watching us today that maybe didn't tune in when we were talking about the Southwest model, right? That when we're approaching customers for a flat rate program, that one of the reasons that we have to standardize as well as get our cost to surety downright the first time is because we're taking a risk to be able to deliver a new program for the customer on that flat rate. No overages, no more counting, and that comes with a bit of compromise, right? So, how did Southwest make their impact in the marketplace? They did things a little differently. They made sure they had one kind of plane to be able to service, one kind of pilot to be able to fly those planes, one kind of flight crew to be able to take care of the good folks that fly with them, and one type of technician. And that's what we're talking about today, right? Is that serviceability. So if we're to deliver, and I've spoken about this several times, and you've seen it through the calculations that I've done, we have this great opportunity. And as Wes had mentioned earlier, by doing kind of the right thing for the customer and looking at what they want the outcome to be, we have this opportunity to both save them some money by helping make their workflows more effective and making sure that we're, by standardizing these devices in the fleet, making sure that it costs us less to service them, to make sure that when they have downtime, that it's short as possible because we are expert on everything we're touching, right? I love it when you say that, simplify the base. It just makes sense, right?
It does. If you would give me the first of the number slides.
Oh, sure. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to put it full size. And we're going to get rid of the view here.
Thank you. And so this is actual data from a dealer that this is a demo dealer, so I don't know who the dealer is, but this is real world dealer data courtesy NEXERA. And this is a MXM 754N, which would be a 75 page a minute sharp device. And I want you to look at the cost at the very top there. When we're talking 0 to 8,000 copies, this machine, the cost per copy in that bandwidth, because you'll see over there where it says CPC, that's based on that volume band. The cost per copy for this dealer, parts and labor, is 9 mils. Actually, I should have said 10 mils because it's 9.9. But very close to a penny. Now, I'm just going to give you, West, if we're getting some answers, do me a favor, pop them in the chat. But this is where we start to play with the numbers that you guys are giving us answers, hopefully, on. At 9.9 mils, so we'll call it a penny just to make it even. Okay, that's our cost. We want 52% profit on that. So that means we're at 2.04. Okay, so now at 2.04, doesn't have any toner, and so let's have let's say just a couple of mils for toner. So we're at 224. Okay, for the click. Now, I would ask this too. How many of you that are selling black and white copiers are getting 2.5 cents a click on black and white? Because that's what you need to get 8,000 pages a month and lower on this device for this dealer. Okay, now look at how many of his machines are in that population. He has 202 of the machines that are in that band. Altogether, in the other band, we have 4, 5, 6, 15, 25. We have 88 machines in the next bands down. Okay. So even the next band down, to get to the number, you're going to be over a penny black and white just for labor and parts, not counting toner, to get your profit number. And nobody's getting a penny. Now, I don't know if this dealer's aware of this or not, if he's paying attention. If he was, he would stop his salespeople from selling this device in that band. This device for him needs to be at 16,000 pages a month or better. Okay, so let's look at slide 2, the second one of these, Wes. Okay, so now let's look at this again. This is that other was an A3 75 page a minute device, and at the volumes they were running, speed didn't matter. This device is an A4 device, and it is, I think, 30. It's either 32 or 25. I didn't look up the model. I should have, but I'm going to assume that it's in the 30 page a minute range. It's an A4 device. And if we look at this, once we get over 1,200 pages a month, okay, so all we got to do is get to 1,200 pages a month, and our cost on this device drops to 00369. Okay, so you think about this, and you think about the difference this makes. If he's selling a person selling a copy at a penny, black and white, which is really high, he's going to have some room to make some money on parts and service on this device. You know, we go back to the other device. You can't, because you're right at cost for parts and labor up to 8,000 pages a month. And yet this guy's got 262 of them out there in the field.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. Like when I look at those numbers, when I look at the first numbers for the population AMV, I mean, when you look at the number of devices in there, that's such a good benchmark to see what you're actually up against versus what those devices are doing versus what they should be doing, right?
Exactly.
Cool. And I've done a lot of assessments in my life, and I've never had that capability.
Well, and again, this is why it's important that you have good data. Now, I will say that you don't have to use BEI Services data to get this. You can have somebody go through all of your machines in that volume and sort them by volume band, and then add up all the costs associated for each of them and do the math yourself. Personally, I think that's a little bit expensive. Thank you, Nelson. I appreciate that comment, because I agree that nobody's getting 2 cents black and white.
No,
but that's what this dealer's got to be getting or more if he's going to make any money. Like I said, this again is, for those that can't tell, I get a little passionate about the industry. I think it's a good business. I think there are ways to make money in it, but I think you have to learn to do it right. As Wes was saying earlier, the days of unlimited margin is gone.
Well, we got to earn our margin now. And when you look at being able to use a data set like this, which takes a base population of equipment that's actually in the field versus what you're trying to put into a customer location, using something like this, we're earning that margin because we're making the recommendations that are the right ones, right? And I absolutely love this because, like you said, when I kind of showcase, I'm from the sales world simply, right? When I'm looking at the gross profit on the the devices and the pages as they're already built out, this is extremely powerful to make sure that they get the the cost of that program under control, right? And remember, under the flat rate, although we're used to looking at volumes, they're not going to be using those volumes. So these kind of visuals on the fly to very quickly understand what those cost contributions are going to be, just absolutely powerful, right?
I agree 100%. And I would say this, that even if you're not interested in flat rate, thinking about this piece of information, the two things that we just talked about, are critical to you being profitable and being able to hold your profit margins and being able to right size the equipment for your customer. I think that even if you don't go on a flat rate program, that getting your I really truly believe that you've got to stop your sales reps from picking what device that they find out what the volume is. They do at least a light version of an assessment, find out what the volume is, and then you tell your sales reps what they can sell and pick devices that are cost effective for you. I think that is cool.
I'm a big believer in that. We got a comment from Jer. Thanks and welcome back again, Jer. Good to see you again. And he said 0.0135 mono to achieve a 50-point GP service-wise, overall 0.0205.
Thank you, Jer. And
So
Jer's a graduate of my...
We had one person today who's not afraid to do the math, so thanks, man.
Well, I was going to say, and Jer is a graduate of both my service success and my advanced service management class. So he's used to looking at numbers like this and thinking about it.
I think, in what do you call it in the gambling world? Don't we call that a ringer?
Yeah. I didn't pay him to come in and do the math for the group, though.
Well, thanks so much, Jared, for that comment. And for anyone else, just remember, this is a live stream. So as we're moving through it, you have anything to say, we'd love to know where you're from. We'd love to know what you're doing. You have any questions, we'll be able to post them up here and take care of them for you. So now that we've talked about some data, let's move into the second point, which is the first call efficiency. And I really love this. Just let me pull up this other graphic that we have built for it, and then I'll let you get going there. Let me do the transition here for you.
Thank you, sir.
Hide myself.
And so now let's start working on getting some cost out of our equation, because we've talked about how we can, pick the right size equipment. Now let's start working on the service team. And the only number that matters, and anybody that wants to argue with me, I will argue with you, and you'll be sorry you picked the fight, because the only thing that really, really matters is first call efficiency. And I've got stories. The guys that went through my training program, they understand, when I'm done, they understand why this matters. But if you have to make a second call to solve a problem, you have just added $100 to the cost of that service contract. And it may vary a little bit from country to country, but just in general, we've done the math enough to be pretty comfortable that $100 per service call and that's kind of minimal. So every time your tech walks into a building, it's $100. The less he walks into the building, the better off you are. I hear people talking about calls per day a lot. I'm going to take one quick comment on that. Now I'm going to give you an example. You have two techs. The two techs cover exactly the same territory, same dollar volume, same number of machines. Everything's exactly the same. One does 2 calls a day and plays golf the afternoons. The other guy does 5 calls a day. Who do you fire? You can put your comments in real quick. I'll come back to that in a minute. One of the things that you can do to be able to improve your first call effectiveness, your first call efficiency, is you get your technicians motivated by putting a comp plan in place that rewards them for first call efficiency.
Yeah, Jared agrees. Jared agrees, and I completely agree as well, right? And I want to go back to that number that you said, that $100 additional for that service cost, right? Imagine that under this flat rate contract, right? Oh, sorry about that, folks. Rule number 1 when you're presenting, put your phone on mute. That it's so absolutely important to make sure that first call efficiency does not, drive the profit out of that flat rate contract, right? So thanks for that, Jer.
Okay, and Jer, better than put that answer in. Not the first, that one, the next one. Pop his other answer up. Jer wants me to fire the guy that's golfing. But if you fire the guy that's golfing, the guy that's doing 5 calls a day is not going to be able to double his territory. He's not going to be able to do 10 calls a day. You fire the guy doing 5 calls because he can't fix it. He can't fix anything. So you get rid of him and you give the guy that's playing golf in the afternoon his territory. Pretty soon he's going to do 4 calls a day and be busy all day.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the guy to keep. I was okay. All right. You just redeemed yourself. You keep the guy that's playing golf because he can fix equipment. And so there are people in this industry that love to run around spouting calls per day and parts cars per call. And I am here to tell you that that is the quickest way to drive a company in the ground.
Here's a good note from Richie, right? That the FCE formulas differ from service model to service model. Absolutely. A true FCE formula should not use total calls, but only customer generated calls.
Exactly. And I'd refine that a little bit further in that what we're really thinking about is machine generated initial calls. In other words, if the customer calls in because the machine has a problem, any new call that's because of that same problem is a recall and starts to reduce your service efficiency. The other thing that reduces it, obviously, is your car stock. And part of the things that we'll talk about with the group that we work with is how to get better at that, because that's important as well. And that's why it's so important to simplify the fleet, because you reduce how much car stock, how many line items you have to carry. But if you put the carrot for your technicians where they get a compensation based on first call efficiency, what will happen is they'll start to really think about doing a total call, doing it right the first time. And I would say this, I saw a dealer that went from 1 million copies per technician to 2 million copies per technician when they implemented a plan that rewarded the technician. So they saved hiring 10 people. Don't think of it as a cost. Just like when you, as an owner or a sales manager, when you write a big check to a sales guy, it's because he's made you a lot of money. If you give a guy a bonus for doing a good job with first call effectiveness, it's because he's made you a lot of money. So think about it from there.
And I love those sales, man, because they're invisible. You do a good job, that sale is invisible and the customer loves it, right? And that second point that you have there, obviously, when you're, kind of making sure that they are looking at that, first call effectiveness and training those techs on that model. And as you mentioned earlier, I think we actually simplify the training as well by standardizing that fleet, right? And I want to reinforce this because some people are watching this that haven't been watching through the whole series, right? And we talk about standardizing. I know that a lot of people roll their eyes because we've tried that. Customers say, no, I need, we've already paid for this equipment. We need this equipment and everything else. Remember that when we're giving them a flat rate offering, they got to meet us in the middle. And that meeting us in the middle is saying, look, our technicians are trained expert on the equipment that we're going to service under this flat rate model. And for those other devices that we're trying to remove, it's not that we're saying that they're bad. It's not that we're saying that they're, our technology is superior, everything else. But for our flat rate program, this is what works. And if you don't want to do a flat rate program, we're quite happy to, do cost per page. We still do that. We're happy to offer you our cost per page offering, but if we're going to do flat rate, this is how we do it.
Oh, you missed one thing though. We're going to buy their fleet. We're going to buy their fleet from them, so they won't care anyway.
Yeah. I loved our friends from France on the first day, right? And what they do is they buy that equipment and then they don't even take it back because, they're like, yeah, there's the recycling costs and everything else. We just tell them, take them home, give them to your kids for college, for whatever, give them to your friends, find a not-for-profit, right? We'll give you the money, we'll buy it, and then you can, do whatever you like with it, right? So absolutely. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of that. Not everyone's going to do that. I'll be the first to say that, that some dealers are not going to buy the equipment, but I'm such a huge fan of that because again, we're taking the device out of the equation, right? So no longer when we go to visit that customer again, is it about trying to sell them a device? Because we can't, we own them. How can I send a sales rep to them to sell a device when we own the fleet, right? So it just completely changes the paradigm, right?
Well, and as we'll talk a lot more with our customers, but we'll talk more in the next couple of days, that in that process, there's some things that we can start to do that really have huge power in the profitability of the deals. And I mean, it's just amazing what you can do. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide.
All right, just let me pull up the new image for that. All right, you are Optimus primed.
Okay, so on the service side, there are things that you can do to start to make things better. And in this, we're going to talk primarily, assuming that you have the printers and every device, every output device, and that's what you want. You want every output device the customer owns to belong to you, at least for the service and support. Is that actually, in reality, I'm a fan of the everything belongs to you. And then once we have that, we can start to really focus on optimizing our territories. Depending on your geography, how widely scattered or how concentrated your machines are, there are different ways to approach it. It may be that you'll have clients that have, and this is common in the US and maybe in other markets as well, where you may have a hospital or a university or something where you have enough machines on campus that you support that you have one person there and they have their own warehouse. And that's when you start to become very cost effective, because you take the travel time out of the equation. Where you can, you want to take travel time out. But at the same time, you may not have control over that. Another thing to think about is, as you lay out your territories, and as I said, as we work with clients, we'll go through and explore all of the options and run the numbers different ways to help build a territory management process that makes sense for your dealership. But in this process, we start to look at training. Okay, now if I have a territory that's geographic and it's remote, the guy that's there has got to be trained on everything he works on, because I can't send another tech in easily. In areas where your machines are more concentrated, sometimes it makes sense to divide it up by a technician that handles low volume, high volume. Or if you have multiple manufacturers, when I was still working at Konica, I had a dealer that I worked with that had a team on one manufacturer and a team on another manufacturer. And it didn't mean that they didn't help each other out, but it meant that in general, they only trained half the people on each product, and that they only car stocked half the people for each product. So that, again, may be a situation depending on how your territories work. But you want to become as effective as possible in reducing your car stock, your training needs, and your drive time. Of those, drive time probably would be my first concern. Okay, yeah. Now I lost my, we talked, the third bullet point. Let's take my notes away because I don't operate off notes. That's fine. He mentioned storerooms. And these are things that where you have high concentrations of machines that work really well is to set up car stock, and I won't call them startup, but warehouse locations at client sites, so that rather than depending on the tech being able to carry everything with him. A good example, and again, this is where it starts, where simplifying the base really makes it huge, is if you have a client that's got 20 of one machine on site, maybe you stock some extra stuff for the technician there. When I was in El Paso as a service manager, we had to rent a warehouse on the other side of town that was climate controlled, because when it's 115 degrees outside, inside the car, a tech can't carry drums and developer and toner. It just melts. And so we had to have multiple warehouses just to cut down on the drive time.
I'll add one other thing from my assessment experience, Ken, is that, when you were kind of talking about having an extra stuff stored at those warehouse locations, whenever I ran an assessment for a customer, one of my favorite activities, when it would make me giddy like, a young kid, was walking into those, where they're warehousing the backup stuff, right? And customers would oftentimes, because they had so many different types of devices, I would take photographs of the toner closet for the fusers and developer kits and everything else that was in there. And I would take an inventory of that and I would add that up, not just for the benefit of the customer, but for the dealer. Because remember, when we talk about cost, we can't ignore aging inventory either, right? So anything that we have in a customer closet or a warehouse or anywhere else that isn't being used, that's a direct cost. So imagine in that standardized fleet under the flat rate program, where if you have 10 of one device and 6 of another, right, that you can have one spare for each of those classes, not for each device, for each of those classes, right? So far less capital expense in the care and feeding of that equipment too.
Exactly. And by having those storerooms, the number of calls that get held for parts and get rescheduled goes down. One other thing, I'll go back to, you don't need to change slides back, but just one thing on the training, building out a total call procedure that really addresses making the machines run from one PM to another is got to be an objective. And again, this doesn't matter if you're talking about flat rate or not, because the machines that run PM to PM are going to be the most cost-effective devices. And you want your technicians, if they're out there, to think about, this is one of the things we talk a lot about in class, but when a technician walks in and looks at a machine, is they should think about, okay, what should I change now so I don't cause another service call? I'll tell you one quick story. Yeah, and that's very true, because that's the other thing that I didn't mention, Richie. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is maybe we have techs that are the best tech on a model. The tighter your machines are packed, the easier that gets, because you're trading off drive time for other areas. But go back where I was going with this. I'll give you an example of what happens when a tech doesn't do that. I was making a visit to a dealer when I worked at Sharp. The dispatcher came in, we were in the middle of a meeting, said, hey, listen, I need you guys to go look at this machine. So myself and the service manager went out to a machine that a tech had seen the day before. And we go in, and the key operator tells us it's jamming just like it was yesterday. So we go in and we look at the machine, we look at the notes, and this machine had 2 drawers side by side that used exactly the same feed components. Both of them had meters. The tech had come in the day before, changed one side, cleared the counter, never looked at the meter on the other side, and the tires on the other side were 30 or 40,000 pages past due for a change. And that's the kind of thing that is cost that you can get out of your service department if you know how to look for it and figure out a plan to get rid of it. And as you do those kinds of things, as we get really optimized, again, we're not going to lower the price. What we're doing by doing these things is we're just improving our margin and becoming more profitable.
Yeah, and so absolutely critical. And I guess the question I would throw out to everyone that's viewing day 5 here, why wouldn't you? In other words, if the tools are available, if the expertise is available to be able to do that, to really understand those service costs and to drive them down, to improve that first call effectiveness rate by how you build the model, why wouldn't you, right?
And I will say this, and just one more. I don't want to say plug for NEXERA, but NEXERA has a comp plan for technicians that accomplishes all of the objectives that are really important. The dealer I was talking about that doubled his click volume, and I was sitting in a meeting where they were giving bonus checks, and some of those bonus checks were $300, $400, $500 bonuses to the technicians. But they saved hiring 10 people. So for your organization, figure out what it would cost you to hire and pay 10 people, and think about how that would impact your profitability compared to just paying some bonus money out. And maybe your organization is not that big. So if you have 3 techs, figure out what it costs you to have 3 more techs, and decide if maybe I could pay a bonus to get the behavior I want. Because, and I heard this statement. I gotta address this. I'm sorry, but I have to hear this. I was standing in a warehouse where a dealer owner made the statement that, I pay them by the hour. Why would I pay them by a bonus? And I'm going to answer his question, because if you pay them by the hour, you're going to get 8 hours. You may not get a productive 8 hours. You may not get the most productive 8 hours. You're not going to get the focus that you need on doing the job right if you pay them for 8 hours. But once his paycheck is dependent on that machine running as long as possible, once his bonus is tied to that, guess what he's going to be focused on? He's going to be focused on what's good for the dealership. And this goes right back to our talk about the other day about sales compensation. You want every piece of compensation in your company to be aligned with what you need for your company. That's why you have to stop paying sales reps to sell equipment that's bad for you. You got to pay them to sell what's right. You got, I mean, just so many ways. I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't get off that soapbox. That's kind of why we're here, right? Is that we really do have to change both how we look at cost, how we look at controlling cost for that equipment. And, one of the other things that you'd mentioned earlier on in the challenge, it's kind of a neat expression, right? Which is, it's a shame that we remove the equipment when it becomes its most profitable, right? And that behavior, like you said, how we pay people, no matter what they're doing, drives that behavior, right? And that's no different on the service technician side. And I completely agree. We've got to make sure that especially as we're shifting a model and we're trying to shift mindsets, that we've got to give them some kind of incentive to do so, right?
That's right. And it's amazing when you put that carrot where you want the horse. And I did a whole presentation on this, but when you put the carrot where you want the horse to go, you put the carrot where it's right here. You don't put it on a little tiny carrot on a really long stick. You put a great big carrot almost in their nose. And then you better get out of their way because they're going to go there as fast and hard as they can trying to get to that carrot.
I'm sorry, man. I ain't doing nothing for a carrot. If it's brisket, you'll get me moving in the right direction. But
Okay.
You can keep the carrots. Well, that was really great, Ken. I just love the expertise that you have in this area, and certainly working with partners like BEI NEXERA to be able to automate those processes and to be able to use that data to help people make better decisions when they're doing everything that we talk about. I just can't thank them enough. And actually, it looks like I still got Wes here. Maybe I'll bring you in just to say thank you again. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, gentlemen, great job.
Yeah. And just once again, thank you very much for sponsoring, and hopefully you'll go golfing and nobody's going to fire you for it.
Yeah, well, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah, please do. So you can find them obviously on LinkedIn. If that's where you are, you can reach out to us. And obviously you can visit their website as well. So Wes, can't thank you enough, and make sure you have a great weekend.
Our pleasure. Thank you much, guys.
Cheers. All right.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Yep. For those that are watching if you want to book a call, you can book the call underneath on the button if you're watching it on the website. And I'm sorry, I didn't give you a link for today. I apologize.
No, that's okay. But you can certainly reach out to me. I love my email. To say that I'm addicted to flat rate is an understatement. So my email is flatrate@wesmcdonald.co, not com.co. And the other thing I'd encourage people to do is make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook or on LinkedIn, make sure you register. So all of our registered participants get access to each and every one of these videos through the 10-day challenge. I just had an email this morning actually from somebody that was looking for the calculator that we promised 2 days ago because they were actually watching them within. They had a meeting. So you got that total flexibility to have that repository. If you hire new people, then you'll also have all the information from the 10-day challenge at your fingertips. The other bonus is one lucky person is going to win $250 on the 10th day. So you got to be registered and you have to be there. So make sure you do it. And it looks like I do have one more comment here. It says, that's Richie. Can you tell that Ken, Jeremiah, and myself live and breathe this service stuff? I'm telling you, if you want a successful organization, not just for flat rate, but for cost per page, you got to have folks that love what they do, right? And on the service side, if that gets your nose 1 inch closer to the windshield every morning, make sure that it happens. So everyone, I want to thank you. That ends the first 5 days of our challenge. We certainly welcome you back on Monday. And on Monday, we've had the good service that NEXERA BI is actually going to be sponsoring us again for this one because it's another area that they have great expertise in, as we've seen some of that today. We're going to be talking about costing and quoting and pricing to make sure that we get that right. So everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Thanks, Ken.